Welcome back to the Open Wheel Offline League, Season 4, Round 14 of the season, but second race of the Triple Crown at Pocono Raceway. A lot of money on the line this weekend, points on the table as we qualify at high speeds. Ethan Mart's first car on track. You can see the qualifying order on the left side of your screen. He is up first. Gonna have to see how much speed he has in it. Build speed over the lap. Build courage over the run. It's been a rough season for Ethan Martz outside of Mid-Ohio. Has not finished higher than 15th the rest of the season. Kind of slow in turn 1, but has built up a lot of speed up to turn 3 and a big lift out of it. Let's see what he has at the line. First lap is a 2:24.786. Not too bad. Second lap is gonna need to be a bit faster though, I'd assume. But the team has been struggling. Both cars now out of the leader circle. Have not had a good race in a while. Was running as high as 4th at Watkins Glen, but finished in last with some bad strategy and struggling with the tires. As second lap comes in, and it will be logged at a 2:25.299, so does improve. And that will keep his average speed at that will put his average speed at a 2:25.043. So obviously P1 now, but he is the only car to have gone, so just a little bit over 2:25. Up next will be the 87 of Alessio Deletta for Banshees of Little Miami, who won here last season. So the team knows what they're doing here, and I also heard that they have done a lot of work on the car. They put in a lot of man hours to get these cars more up to speed, because this first half of the season has been pretty disappointing for the team outside the win at Detroit. So all three drivers, we expect to have a little bit more speed than they did at Indy. Alessio Deletta comes off turn 3 for his first lap at speed, and it's going to be much faster than what Ethan put up on either of his laps. 2:27.405. Not at 2:30, but looking pretty solid. As here we go down the Long Pond Straight, going into the tunnel turn modeled after Indianapolis. There's now barrels into turn 3. Pretty flat compared to the other two turns. As down the front stretch, and this lap going to be a little bit faster, 2:27.692, which will put him in P1 with an average of 2:27.549. So Alessio Deletta will go to the top, but that's only 1 out of 2 so far in the order determined by entrant points, so your faster cars will be at the end. But nearly, actually is 2.5 mile per hour faster than Ethan Martz, the only other car to go out so far. Up next is the 77 of Stingray Robb. Been a difficult season for the Magenta Trees. Glupler, though, has found a little bit more pace in the last few races. Stingray just hasn't quite been there, currently out of the leader circle, which is outside the top 20. So not making the money that the team needs, not getting the points that the team needs. as he goes into the tunnel turn. And then coming off into turn 3, as let's see what speed he has at the line. Not too far off Deletta. That is a 227.434. So that is actually a bit faster than Deletta's first lap, but needs some more pace to beat his second lap. Currently tracking to P2. Just shy of 240 entering turn 3. Gonna have to see what speed he has coming to the line. A little bit of a wiggle off turn 3. And this lap is going to be just a smidge faster. But that is only going to be a 227.468, which is not enough to beat Deletta. That puts his average speed at a 227.451, which will put him in second place as of now. So just about a tenth of a mile per hour off, but not too bad. As up next is V54 of Mahavir Raghunathan. Did pretty well in the first half of the season, hasn't really gotten the same speed out of it the second half, and has fallen out of the leader circle. Dropped just below 200 entering turn 1. We're going to need to find a lot more speed out of it going down the Long Pond stretch. Coming off turn 3, let's see what he has. His teammate pretty far off as of now, as his speed not gonna be good enough. And by a pretty considerable amount, 223.792. That is a mile per hour off Ethan Martz, his teammate's first lap. 54 has been, on average, the worst qualifier this season. And unfortunately, right now it's showing. The ovals have been very difficult for this team. As he will come off turn 3. Let's see if he has any more pace in it. Does improve to a 224.109, but that is nowhere near good enough, as his average will be just below 224. So the 54 of Mahavir Raghunathan, far off the pace. As up next, another Banshees of Little Miami car. It's the 29 of Benjamin Peterson. We talked when Deletta made his run that the Banshees of Little Miami have stepped up their game in their car production. So they've improved the car. And let's see what Peterson has, just barely within the leader circle. So needs some points to help keep the team afloat money-wise. As he'll go into turn 3. Let's see what speed he has. First lap will be a 227.635. That's just shy of Deletta's second lap. And right now that is tracking him to first. So if he can keep it above, he is looking at provisional pole. 2 tenths up on Deletta's first lap. Exactly 2 tenths over Stingray Rob's first lap. But right now looking good, as he will come off the turn. Second lap just a little bit slower at a 227.606, but that will be enough to take him to the top with an average of 227.621. Will just barely beat out his teammate. So far, only first out of 5, but doesn't look too bad. So Banshees of Little Miami looking solid so far in qualifying. As up next is the number 99 of Brennan Hubbard for Viking Racing. Also started the season pretty well, got a 4th early in the season at Suzuka, but hasn't really found the results as of recently. Ovals haven't been very kind to him either. Typically, the rookies do well on the ovals and kind of struggle on the road courses, but it's kind of been inverted this season. A lot of slower teams and your new drivers struggling to find pace. As let's see what the 99 has. First lap is going to be a 226.267. So that is a fair bit off Stingray Rob's time. Currently tracking him to P4. So continuing to lack a little bit of pace. The team is looking to re-sign him for next season. So right now does have something worth fighting for and would like to put up some strong results at the end of the season to make it happen. A lot of money on the table for this event. Not super close to the wall coming off turn 3, but it will be faster. 226.757. That is going to put his average at a 226.512, which will put him in 4th place as of now. Of just beating out the Skibbity Sigma cars. Put him just a little bit below the median. Up next is V42 of Gale Barnhart. Silly Men Racing coming off a 1-2 at Watkins Glen, but unfortunately Gale Barnhart not a part of it. He just hasn't really found the same pace that his teammates have found when it comes to qualifying, when it comes to race pace. Armstrong and Jordan are moving up the championship points, but Gale Barnhart has actually been moving backwards. Now sits just above the leader circle cutoff. So gonna need a strong run here in qualifying to put him up the order. First lap will be a 226.975. So right now that is now tracking just a little bit above Hubbard, putting him in P4, but a considerable margin off the top so far. Barreling down the Long Pond Straight, a little bit of a slide entering turn 2. Now down towards turn 3. As let's see, does he go faster on this lap? Yes, he does. That is going to put his speed at 227.175. So improves by 2/10. But unfortunately that is not enough to bring him above 4th. He qualifies with a 227.075. So that will put him in 4th, just above Brennan Hubbard by about half a mile per hour. But off Stingray by nearly another half a mile per hour. So up next is V75 of Jacob Abel for Team Eggs. Also has kind of struggled on qualifying pace, was pretty consistent at the beginning of the season. Still hasn't finished worse than 18th, but consistency at about 12th place doesn't net a lot of points. Hasn't finished in the top 5. I think he may be the only driver this season that has not gotten the top 5 besides Alessio Deletta. So no top 5s on the season, but he has been one of the cleanest drivers. Not a lot of massive incidents, and has kept his nose clean. First lap going to be a 226.923, so struggling to get above 227. Right now, that is currently tracking him to 5th, right behind Gale Barnhart. So he needs to find a little bit more pace on this second lap. Yeah, qualifying has really been doing him in. He's had some solid race runs. Moves up a pretty good amount on average, but just qualifies so far back that's quite tough to get out of. As second lap going to be significantly slower. A 226.159. So a big decrease in speed. He did qualify last at Indy. He will just barely out-qualify Hubbard, but only by about 0.03 of a mile per hour. So that will put him in 5th place as of now. But qualifying woes continue for the 75 team. Up next is the number 12 of Miles Rowe. This is another driver who's been put through simulator training, and the team has invested into car improvement, looking to help out their driver. One podium in his career, his whole career in the Open Wheel Offline League has been with Eventide Racing, but not looking too hot in his first full-time season. Still sitting in 16th place in points, but a fair bit off his teammate. So looking for a good qualifying run here today. First lap will be a 226.757. So another car not quite reaching 227. This currently puts his average in 5th place behind Gale Barnhart, so needs to find more pace in it. And hopefully doesn't have a big fall off like Abel. So looking at qualifying right in the middle of everyone who's gone so far. He'll come off turn 3 and head to the line. And it's a pretty sizable improvement, 227.330. So that is a big improvement on the second lap. That is going to put his average at a 227.044. Not enough to beat Gale Barnhart, so he will still qualify in 5th. But good improvement, just too little too late. Now you could see this as 2 laps, 2.5 mile laps, but really it's just 1 5-mile run. You gotta be fast through the whole 5 miles, and doesn't matter if you're good in the first half or the second half, you gotta be good in both to have your qualifying speed farther up the order. As next up is the 33 of Marcus Armstrong, who's looked good the last few races, got pole at Watkins Glen. Finished second, was not enough to beat teammate Chet Jordan, just a little too quick. Chet Jordan pretty much dominated, but Armstrong wasn't far off him and bested him in qualifying, despite being slower in the previous 2 rounds. So teammate Gale Barnhart a little bit above midway in 4th. So let's see what Marcus Armstrong has. Got his first career pole at Watkins Glen, now comes here just across the state line, as first lap will be 2:28.571. That is a massive first lap by the 33 car. That is nearly a whole mile per hour faster than Peterson's average, who currently sits in P1. So Marcus Armstrong looking pretty good so far. Here he comes through turn 3. 225, 226, 230. As let's see what he has here. Not as fast on this second lap, but is it enough? 228.374. So lost nearly 2 tenths, which is a pretty big fall off, but will still qualify at a 228.473. That is a fat average. That is a fat lap. So Marcus Armstrong gonna go to the top, coming off second place at Watkins Glen and showing some muscle here at Pocono. So that may be one of your contenders for pole. I think that first lap was pretty darn good, but that second lap may have lost him. As up next will be the 00 of Glubler Lore, coming off a 5th place at Watkins Glen. Some incredible tire conservation. Got him a good result, nearly 250 entering turn 1. He's been doing better recently, but it still hasn't been an ideal season. But he is a pole sitter here at Pocono. Has 3 poles on super speedways, but hasn't gotten there since. Qualified well at Indy, was one of the fastest in day 1. But let's see what he has at the other 2.5 mile. First lap will be a 227.520. Not too shabby. Not close to Armstrong, but currently tracking to P4, just behind Alessio Deletta. We'll see what speed he has on this second lap. Doesn't lose a lot of time in the tunnel turn. Just barely tickles 239 entering turn 3. As at the line, it's going to be slower this time. 227.187, a lot of speed lost on that second lap, which will bring down his average to behind his teammate Stingray Robb and put him P5. Not a bad run for the 00. Not quite where he would like to be, but still fairly solid. Two 27.354. Gonna put him right near the middle. As up next, been pretty good on the ovals so far. It's the 25 of David Malukas, sporting his blue and yellow livery. Looked good at Iowa. Was running in 3rd at Indy before he crashed out. 2nd at Texas. Biggest mover at Milwaukee. So ovals very much suiting his nature. Watkins Glen was not bad either, and that one kind of functioned more as an oval with braking points. Into turn 2, looks quite good so far. Solidly hits 239 entering turn 3. As let's see what he has at the line. 227.940. Not too bad, but not going to be enough to unseat Armstrong. but right now looking pretty comfortably at second place so far. So let's see what speed he can build on this second lap, if he can keep it good. As the blue and yellow car of David Malukas gonna come out of turn 3. Last car before we reach the halfway point, and he will go faster on this second lap. 228.403, not quite at Armstrong's best, but that is a pretty good lap that will put his average just above 228 at a 228.172. So 3/10 of a mile per hour off Armstrong. Currently sits himself on the front row. So halfway into qualifying now, the field's starting to fill out, but that is the bottom 12 in points. So up next comes the top 12. So expect a lot of these times that sit well right now to fall. So here comes the number 90 of Guy Gagné to lead off the second half. The ovals have been okay for Guy Gagné. Nothing particularly special, but not quite bad either. A solid run at Indy, qualified 7th. Just missed out on the Fast 6. Best car of his team at Texas. Kind of stuck in the middle of the pack at Milwaukee. It was a difficult race to pass, but not a lot of movement. Does not hit 239 entering turn 3. That's not very good. As let's get to the line. First lap, 226.489. That's a little bit faster than his teammate Brendan Hubbard's first lap. So far, not a good run, as right now he is tracking to 11th. Desperately needs to find some speed on this second lap, because right now it doesn't look too good. Coming out of turn 3, let's see what he has. And it will be a pretty big improvement, 227.083. That is quite a big improvement. That will bring his average to a 226.786, which will jump him up to 9th place, just behind Miles Rowe, but not exactly what he would have wanted to see. He's going to be starting fairly deep in the field. At best, will be 9th. But that's assuming everyone after him goes slower. So the first 13 cars have ran. Up next is the 47 of Lindsey Brewer. Again, off the Banshees of Little Miami team that has looked so solid today. 3rd and 4th, we knew the cars got improvements and showing pretty good so far. A lot better than what they had shown on the ovals previously. Lindsey Brewer has won at Indianapolis. Not the same amount of success at Pocono. So looking for a good run today. Just outside the top 10 in points, has been so very good on the road courses, but the ovals have been a little difficult. First lap will come in, and it will be a 226.986, just shy of 227. All of our teammates were able to do 227. So a little lacking behind them, currently tracking to 9th, right where Guy Gagné is. Exactly 2/10 up on Gagné's average on that first lap. So maybe if she gets some improvement, she could go up to 7th. She can beat Gail Barnhart and Miles Rowe. as coming off turn 3, gonna hit the line, and it's a fairly solid improvement, 227.347 on pace with her teammates, just a little bit off, but fairly solid, and she will jump Gail Barnhart and Miles Rowe and go right behind Glubler in P7. So a solid run from the 47 puts her right in the middle of the pack so far. As coming up next will be the 03 of Dorian Pin. Has had a lot of speed this season, a lot of good, strong qualifying efforts, but not many results. But her best race of the season was at the first race of the Triple Crown at Indianapolis, finished second, despite being far down the order at some points. Late race restart, gained a lot of spots. Started second as well, so don't count out this 03 car. Let's see what speed she has going into turn 3. Just hits 239. Coming off turn number 3. And it will be a 227.929. Not quite Marcus Armstrong, but on pace with David Malukas. Would need a massive improvement to try to go for pole. But right now tracking the third. 25 and the 33. Gonna be tough to beat today. But if there's any team that can do it, it will be the Swindlers of the Immortals. By far the strongest team in qualifying this season. And sit 1-2 in the points. Dorian Pin, however, down in 10th. Has a lot left to prove. Luckily does have a contract to next season. As second lap, just a smidge slower. 227.871. That will put her average at a 227.9. So goes up to third place. Not quite where she would have wanted, as that car is pretty quick. Still in the top 3 as of now. So good run from the 03 team. Put her on the podium so far. Up next is V27 of Yuki Tsunoda. This car also got some speed improvements. Eventide Racing put some money into improving this team. And we know this team is quite good on the ovals because Yuki Tsunoda won at Texas to open the season. So, not too bad. But the last few races on the ovals, not as strong, but Iowa, even though the qualifying effort wasn't quite there, there was some speed in the race. Didn't hit 239 entering turn 3 as this first lap. Not gonna be super strong, 227.210. Gonna be faster than his teammate, but needs more if he wants to do better. As currently going to put him in 8th as of now. So let's see what speed he has on the second lap. Currently running 2 miles per, not 2 miles per hour, 0.2 of a mile per hour faster than Miles Rowe. As this lap, massive improvement. Oh my gosh, 228.056. That is a big improvement. As that will shoot him all the way up to 4th place, just ahead of Benjamin Peterson with a 227.633. So what he lacked in that first lap was made up for in the second, as that is a very big improvement. So Yuki Tsunoda goes up to fourth, as up next, second in the Rookie of the Year standings, it's Catherine Legg running the maroon, black, and gold livery for the second time. Running fairly well at Watkins Glen, but needed to pit later on and finish well down the order. Right now, teammate David Malukas put it second. So we know this team has some speed, but let's see what Catherine Legg can do with it. As she will come off turn 3, was pretty good at Indy and pretty solid at Texas as well, but this first lap, not very good. 226.205. That is shockingly far off her teammate. Right now, that is tracking her all the way down in 15th out of 17. Needs to have a big improvement here if she wants to be anywhere. Did qualify pretty low at Indy, but doesn't look too hot against her teammate. As this lap, going to be a very big improvement. We'll go to a 227.273, a whole mile per hour gain. But unfortunately, that first lap is a boat anchor and will put her below Guy Gagné in 13th. So that it was a pretty solid second lap, but that first lap was not good enough. We'll qualify in 13th so far, just ahead of Jacob Abel, but behind Guy Gagné. Could really use Vermillion in the Rookie of the Year. But we know Connor Zilic, who is up next, has some speed on the ovals, as he had the pole at the last oval we went to. So let's see what the number 9 of Connor Zilic has. Teammates qualified 12th and 15th out of 17 so far, so not a lot of speed. Let's see what the number 9 has in store. Connor Zilic got the pole at Iowa, led about 2/3 of the way, then spun out on his own not once but twice. Still finished the race, but a few laps down. Lost a lot of potential points that race. One win on the season comes at the Spanish Grand Prix in Aragon early on in the season, as this first lap will be a 228.044. He's off of Armstrong by half a mile per hour, but we do know Armstrong had a pretty big fall off, but he's going to need a monstrous second lap to try to compete with that. So far, Armstrong looks solid, but Connor Zilic tracking to third so far. Let's see what he has on this second lap. Very close to the wall off turn 3, as it will be a faster lap. 228.177. That is not enough to put it on pole and not enough to get on the front row. His average will be a 228.111, which will put him in third place. But right now, the second best qualified rookie, Malukas, so far the fastest rookie. Both going for the Triple Crown for the first time. Connor Zilic Had some solid speed at Indy, tried an alternate strategy, didn't quite get what he wanted out of it, but still finished pretty solidly. But this team has also been plagued by inconsistency, but right now that is a pretty solid qualifying effort. As up next is the number 30 of Robbie Lohr, who has very much struggled in qualifying as of recently. Teammate Jacob Abel all the way down in 15th. I don't think Robbie's had a good qualifying run since Indy, which was 7 races ago. Luckily, he has stayed in the top 6 in points. Just because of pure consistency, he has a lot of 8th place finishes. Does have a win at Sandown, second race of the season, but it hasn't been too hot as of recently. Let's see if his qualifying pace picks up today as he comes off turn 3, as it is not quite there. That is going to be a 226.506. Right now that is tracking all the way down in 17th. Needs a lot more speed and would need a pretty big improvement. But this 30 car just hasn't had the pace in qualifying as of recently, and unfortunately it's showing again. Off turn 3. And it's going to be an improvement. Let's see the speed. It will be a 226.958. So not a big enough improvement to solve the qualifying issues. It will be just behind Catherine Legg in P15, just beating out teammate Jacob Abel. But unfortunately looking to be at the back of the grid. So 226.732, just barely off Catherine Legg's speed. Put him deep in the field. Up next, last race winner, it's the 24 of Chet Jordan. Got a second place at the last race at Iowa. Very good on the super speedways, but Pocono has been a track that he just hasn't quite performed on. A lot of difficult results. 20th last season out of 25 cars. So, looking to try to get some speed. Teammate Gail Barnhart right in the middle of the pack in 11th. Armstrong in 1st. So let's see what the 24 car has. First lap will be a 227.221. Not too bad, but pretty far off his teammate. Is currently going to put him in, I believe, 10th. So not quite where he'd want to be. Needs to find more pace. We know Armstrong lost pace on his 2 laps. Barnhart gained 0.2. So let's see what Chet Jordan has on his second lap. Comes off turn 3, pretty close to the wall. And it's going to be a big improvement. 227.958. Just shy of 228 miles per hour, as that will put his average speed at a 227.590, which will be just behind Benjamin Peterson, but in front of Alessio Deletta. So splitting the Banshees of Little Miami cars, as that will bring Deletta down the order, but still a pretty good result from Banshees of Little Miami cars, but Chet Jordan not quite near his teammate, but he'll try to make it up in race pace. He has finished the last 3 races in the top 5, which is a very impressive feat for this season. No one else has been able to do it. So right now he is on a hot streak. Currently, the Silly Men Racing first, 7th, and 12th out of 20 cars. 4 left to run. It's your fastest 4 this season. Callum Ilott has been very impressive on the road courses. He had that streak of second places that unfortunately has ended as he finished 12th at Watkins Glen, but hasn't found the same pace on the ovals. Did not qualify well at Indy, ran solidly at Milwaukee. Texas was taken out in an early crash, finished in last. Then Iowa just kind of ran around the bottom of the top 10 for most of the race. So let's see, does the 18 Aggressive Bees have enough for their first pole? As first lap, not quite there. That is going to be a 227.256. Just a little bit faster than Chet Jordan's first lap, but we know improvements are possible. And at this point, kind of likely. But right now, that puts him in 11th, which will be directly in the middle of the field. Needs to find some pace as we go into turn 3. Does not hit 239. Off turn 3 into the line, as it's going to be just a little bit faster, but that is not enough. 227.428. So finds 2/10. But that will put his average just below Glubler and ahead of Lindsey Brewer. So in 11th place on the timing tower. The 3 cars left to run. It's your 3 fastest cars this season, all of which have a pole on an oval. So this may turn to a slugfest, but either way, it's not going to be a new pole sitter on the season today. As Armstrong and the 3 that remain have gotten a pole this season. Ryan Preece, 10 career poles, looking for 11, 6 on the season, as he is going to pick up speed going into turn 1. Gets to 246, doesn't drop much below 210. So looking to have some pace in it. He got the pole at Texas early in the season, front row at Indy. Louis Foster did get the pole that day, and Foster still left to run. 238, 239, doesn't quite hold it as much. But this looks to be a pretty hot time that could contend for pole possibly. First lap will be a 228.305. He's close enough, but would need to have a very big lap this second time out to try to beat it. I think he'd need about 228.6. So let's see what he has in it. 64 is absolutely flying. Right now tracking to second place. Off by about a tenth and a half. Second lap, let's see what he has. As unfortunately it's going to be slower, 228.120. As that will not be enough for pole, but that will be enough for the front row. As just going to beat out David Malukas. So a solid run for the 64 car, but it won't be pole today, as it's down to either the swindlers of Louis Foster and Shane Van Gisbergen or Marcus Armstrong for pole this season. as the order getting adjusted with 2 cars left to go. Let's see who has enough. Not quite close enough for Ryan Preece. Shane Van Gisbergen, a good run at Watkins Glen, has reeled in the points lead down to just 9 points behind his teammate Louis Foster. As that looks faster than Preece in turn 1. Doesn't drop below 210. Kept it around 212 for most of the turn. Did hit 210 near the exit, so that may have lost him some speed on the straightaways. But let's see what he has. Will he hit 239 entering? He doesn't hit 239, so not quite there. Seemed he had a lot of speed going into turn 1, but lost a lot of it, and that ruined his momentum on the rest of the lap, as he will hit a 227.664, which is not quite enough. That currently puts him tracking to 6th. So not a lot of time found on that first lap. Let's see if he can find any more on the second half of his run. 238 again, doesn't hit 239. So Armstrong safe and will be on the front row. But Van Gisbergen does find a little bit of time, 227.958, but that will not be enough to move him out of 5th place. Or sorry, 6th place. As he will be just behind teammate Dorian Penn. Did not qualify too well at Indy, but seemed to have done pretty solid here. Gonna put him pretty far up the order, just ahead of Yuki Tsunoda in 6th place. So the field is now set besides one car, and it's the 11 of Louis Foster. He sat on pole at Indianapolis, his only pole of the season, but is your points leader coming into this race in his first full-time season. So let's see what the number 11 has in store. Either going to be Foster's second of the season or Armstrong's second of the season. So let's see what Louis Foster has. Looking for an extension on his points lead. It's only 1 point, but it could help a lot. 213 in the middle of the corner, but does drop to 210, so that may have hurt his exit speed just a bit. But Ryan Preece looked pretty solid in the turn and probably carried the momentum down the backstretch through turn 2 and into turn 3. So let's see what Louis Foster has. And where does it compare to his teammate? Does not hit 239 as well. Looking good for Armstrong, as Louis Foster gonna come off the turn. First lap not there. It will be a 227.623. And it looks like Marcus Armstrong will have pole for the second race in a row. Right now, Louis Foster tracking to 8th, just 2 thousandths above Benjamin Peterson. See if he can carry the speed through the second half of his run and find some more speed like his teammate Van Gisbergen. Doesn't hit 239 again. Points leader Louis Foster comes off turn 3 and to the line, as he will go just a smidge slower, 227.405. That will drop him behind Peterson, and that will put his qualifying effort a little farther down the order than he would have liked. He is going to be behind Alessio Deletta in 11th with a 227.514. So your points leader does not come out of this at all where he would have wanted, just above midway. And that means Marcus Armstrong, for the second time in his career, for the second time this season, and in back-to-back races, he will sit on the front row and bring the field to green. This is a very strong run for Sillyman Racing that has formed these last few races, and it continues to shine. So that is your qualifying order and their times. Marcus Armstrong on pole. What an effort by that 33 car. 2.5 tenths faster than the second car. That is quite a run. So here is your starting grid for tomorrow's race at Pocono, the second race of the Triple Crown. In row one, it will be Marcus Armstrong leading the field to green with Ryan Priest, the car that he managed to beat out for second place at Watkins Glen. Row two will be David Malukas. We know he's good on the ovals. He's going to be starting high up tomorrow. Then Connor Zilic starting fourth once again. In row three is where you will find two of the Swindlers cars, Dorian Pinn and Shane Van Gisbergen. Not common when Pinn beats her other teammates, but today was a good day for the team. Row four, both of these cars had improvements coming into this race. It's going to be Yuki Tsunoda and Benjamin Peterson qualifying 7th and 8th. Then rounding out your top 10 will be Chet Jordan starting down in 9th and Alessio Deletta in 10th. Row 6 is where you will find points leader Louis Foster pretty far down the order, and he will be alongside the 77 of Stingray Robb in a solid qualifying effort. Row 7 is where you will find the 00 of Glupler Lore and the 18 of Callum Ilott, also pretty far down from what he would have wanted, as he's kind of struggled to qualify on these ovals this season. Row 8 is where you'll find Lindsey Brewer and Gail Barnhart, who also didn't have the pace that he wanted, especially compared to his teammate, Marcus Armstrong, who's on pole. And then row 9 will be Miles Rowe and Guy Gagne. Down to row 10 is where you will find Catherine Legg, also pretty far down the order. And then Robbie Lohr continues to struggle in qualifying, as in row 11, Jacob Abel starting pretty far down in another Triple Crown race, and Brendan Hubbard. And then row 12, unfortunately, once again, will be filled up with the Skibbity Sigma racing cars of Ethan Martz and Mahavir Raghunathan. So that is qualifying here at Pocono. Tomorrow will be the second leg of the Triple Crown. $2.5 million on the line for the winning car. And it's going to be a wild ride, a lot of close wheel-to-wheel racing. And I hope to see you guys there. I'll see you tomorrow.